kitchen of the Riverside mansion smelled like fresh roses and expensive coffee. Isabel wiped down the marble countertops for the third time that afternoon, making sure every surface sparkled. She'd been working here for almost 2 years now, and she knew Mrs. Chen liked everything perfect. Especially today. The Chen family was hosting one of their famous charity events tonight. 200 guests, live music, catered dinner, the kind of evening where everything had to look effortless, even though Isabel knew it took an army of people working behind the scenes to make it happen. She glanced at the clock. Her daughter would be here soon. Right on schedule, the back door opened and 16-year-old Lily walked in, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Her school uniform was a bit wrinkled and her shoes had seen better days, but her smile was bright as always. "Hi, Mom," she said softly, not wanting to disturb anyone. "Hey, sweetheart."
How was school?
"Good. I finished my calculus homework during lunch, so I just have some reading left." Lily settled into the small chair by the pantry, the spot where she always waited for her mother's shift to end. She pulled out a worn paperback and opened it, content to be invisible. Isabel felt that familiar ache in her chest. Her daughter deserved so much more than waiting in kitchens. But this was their reality, at least for now. The kitchen doors swung open suddenly and 3 teenagers strolled in laughing about something. Isabel recognized them immediately. The Chen twins, Kevin and Jessica, both 17 and home from their private academy for the weekend. With them was their friend, a tall boy named Brandon who visited often. "I'm starving," Kevin announced, heading straight for the refrigerator. "What have we got?" Isabel moved aside politely. "There are sandwiches prepared for you in the lower shelf, and fresh fruit is already cut in the container beside it." "Thanks," he said, barely looking at her. Jessica spotted Lily in the corner. "Oh, who's that?" "That's Isabel's daughter," Brandon said, grabbing a bottle of sparkling water. "She comes here sometimes." Jessica walked closer, studying Lily like she was something curious in a museum. "Do you go to school around here?" Lily looked up from her book, closing it carefully. "Yes, Lincoln High." "Public school," Jessica said to Kevin, as if that explained everything. "Must be so different from Cambridge Academy." Lily didn't respond. She'd learned it was better to stay quiet in these situations. Kevin joined his sister, sandwich in hand. "What are you reading?" "Just a book for English class." "Let me guess," Brandon smirked, leaning against the counter. "Something we read in like 9th grade?" The 3 of them laughed. Isabel's hands tightened around the dish towel, but she kept her face neutral. She couldn't afford to lose this job. "You know what's funny?" Jessica said, her voice taking on that particular tone that meant nothing funny was coming. "Tonight we're having this whole classical music thing. Piano performance, string quartet, the works. I bet you've never even been to a real concert, have you?" Lily shook her head. "No, I haven't. See, culture isn't really something you can just access," Jessica continued, examining her manicured nails. "It takes years of exposure, education. My parents have been taking us to the symphony since we were babies." "Must be nice," Lily said simply. Kevin laughed. "It is, actually. We're supposed to have this amazing pianist performing tonight. Some prodigy from Juilliard. Mom paid like $10,000 just to get him here." $10,000. Lily's eyes widened despite herself. "That's nothing," Brandon added. "Real talent costs money. Years of the right teachers, the right schools, the right connections. You can't just pick up a piano and become good at it." Isabel wanted to say something. Her jaw clenched, but she remained silent. "Not yet. Not here." The kitchen phone rang, and one of the event coordinators rushed in, looking frantic. She grabbed the phone, listened for a moment, and her face went pale. "What do you mean he's not coming?" she said into the receiver. "The performance is in 2 hours." "What kind of emergency?" Everyone in the kitchen stopped and listened. "Food poisoning? Are you kidding me right now?" The coordinator pressed her hand to her forehead. "We have 200 guests arriving, and the entire evening is built around this performance. Find me someone, anyone. I don't care if they're not from Juilliard. Just find someone who can play piano at a professional level in the next hour." She hung up and immediately started making more calls, pacing around the kitchen in her heels. Mrs. Chen swept into the kitchen moments later, clearly having heard the news. "Tell me this is not happening, Patricia." "I'm trying every agency in the city," Patricia said desperately. "But on this short notice on a Saturday evening, everyone's already booked." Mrs. Chen's lips pressed into a thin line. This is unacceptable. That performance is the centerpiece of the entire gala. I've been promoting it for weeks. Kevin nudged his sister. Hey, maybe we can get the maid's daughter to fill in, he whispered, but not quietly enough. Jessica burst out laughing, trying to cover it with her hand. Mrs. Chen's sharp eyes caught the exchange. What was that? Nothing, Mom, Jessica said quickly. Kevin was just joking around. But Mrs. Chen looked at Lily now, really looked at her for the first time. You girl, what's your name? Lily, ma'am. Can you play piano? The kitchen went absolutely silent. All eyes turned to Lily. Isabel's heart hammered in her chest. This was it, the moment she'd been both hoping for and dreading. Lily glanced at her mother, uncertain. Isabel gave the tiniest nod. Yes, ma'am. I can play. Jessica's smile vanished. Wait, seriously? How long have you been playing? Mrs. Chen asked, her tone skeptical but desperate. Since I was 4 years old. Lessons at some community center, I assume. Mrs. Chen's eyebrow raised. My mother taught me, Lily said quietly. She was a piano instructor before we came here. This was news to the Chen family. They looked at Isabel with surprise. You taught piano? Mrs. Chen asked. Yes, ma'am. For 15 years. At the National Conservatory in Manila. My credentials didn't transfer when we immigrated. Kevin and Jessica exchanged glances. This wasn't fitting their assumptions at all. Well, Mrs. Chen said, clearly weighing her options against her doubts. I don't have time for a lengthy audition, but I need to hear something. The ballroom now. If you can play at least adequately, maybe we can avoid complete disaster. She turned and walked out, expecting everyone to follow. Patricia looked relieved at any possible solution. Come on, let's see what you can do. Lily stood up, smoothing down her school skirt. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she held her head high. Isabel wanted to hug her, to tell her it would be okay, but she just squeezed her daughter's hand once quickly. They all walked through the house to the grand ballroom. It was stunning, with crystal chandeliers and tall windows overlooking the garden. In the center of it all sat a beautiful black grand piano, polished to perfection. Lily had never played anything like it. The keyboard at home cost $60 at a pawn shop. Mrs. Chen gestured impatiently. Go ahead. Play something. Anything. Let's see if you can at least manage a simple piece without embarrassing me in front of my guests. Lily walked across the gleaming floor. Her worn shoes squeaked slightly. She could feel everyone watching her, judging her, waiting for her to fail. She sat down at the bench, adjusted her position, and placed her fingers on the keys. The piano felt like coming home. Lily took a deep breath. The grand piano was nothing like the small electronic keyboard she practiced on every night in their tiny apartment. This instrument was real, heavy. The keys felt different under her fingers, smooth and responsive in a way she'd only dreamed about. She could hear Mrs. Chen tapping her foot impatiently behind her. Jessica whispered something to Kevin. They were all waiting for her to fumble, to prove she didn't belong here. But when Lily pressed down on the first key, something shifted inside her. The note rang out pure and clear, filling the entire ballroom. She didn't start with something simple. She couldn't. Years of practice, of dreaming, of imagining what it would feel like to play on a real piano, all came flooding out. Her fingers began moving across the keys, and she started playing Chopin's Revolutionary Etude. It was one of the most technically difficult pieces in classical piano. Most professionals struggled with it, but Lily had been playing it in her head for so long, had practiced the fingering on her silent keyboard during bus rides, had listened to recordings until she knew every single note by heart. The music exploded into the room like a thunderstorm. Her left hand created a cascade of notes that sounded like rage and hope mixed together, while her right hand sang out the melody with a clarity that made the hair on your arm stand up. Isabel stood by the doorway, tears already forming in her eyes. She'd heard her daughter play 1,000 times on that cheap keyboard, but this was different. This was Lily finally being heard the way she was meant to be heard. Mrs. Chen's mouth fell open. She took a step closer as if she needed to make sure this was really happening. Kevin stopped smirking. His face had gone completely blank with shock. Jessica's arms were crossed, but slowly, without even realizing it, she lowered them to her sides. Patricia, the event coordinator, pulled out her phone and started recording. Brandon just stared, his water bottle forgotten in his hand. The ballroom staff, hearing the music, began gathering at the doorways. The head butler, the gardener, 2 housekeepers, even the security guard from the front gate. They all came to listen. Lily's fingers flew across the keys. The music built and built, getting louder and more intense. This piece was called Revolutionary for a reason. It was written during a time of uprising, of fighting for what was right, and Lily played it like she understood that fight personally, like she'd been fighting it her whole life, every time she'd been ignored. Every time someone had looked right through her mother. Every time she'd sat in that kitchen corner, invisible. Every time she'd wanted to say something but stayed quiet to protect her mother's job. All of it poured out through her fingers into the music. The final notes came crashing down like waves and then silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Lily's hands were still on the keys, trembling slightly. She hadn't played on a real piano in almost 3 years. Not since they'd left Manila. Not since everything had changed. Mrs. Chen was the first to speak, and her voice was completely different now. Softer. Uncertain. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Lily turned on the bench to face her. "My mother taught me. She studied at the National Conservatory. She trained under Master Reyes, one of the most respected piano instructors in Southeast Asia." Isabel stepped forward, her voice quiet but steady. "I taught private lessons to over 40 students. Several of them went on to professional careers. I was preparing for my master certification when we had to leave." "Why did you leave?" Mrs. Chen asked. "My husband got sick," Isabel said simply. "The medical bills destroyed us. We came here hoping for better opportunities, but my teaching credentials weren't recognized. The certification process would take years and cost money we didn't have. So I did what I had to do. I found work that could pay the bills and keep my daughter in school." Patricia was still holding up her phone, recording everything. "Mrs. Chen, I hate to interrupt, but we need to make a decision. Guests start arriving in 90 minutes. Mrs. Chen looked at Lily, really looked at her this time. "Can you play for 2 hours? A full program?" "Yes, ma'am. Do you have performance clothes?" Lily glanced down at her school uniform. "No, ma'am. Just this." Mrs. Chen turned to Patricia. "Call my personal shopper." "Emergency delivery. Something elegant but age-appropriate. Size?" She looked at Lily. "Size 2? "Yes, ma'am," Lily said quietly. Jessica found her voice finally. "Mom, you can't be serious." "She's just the maid's daughter." "What are you going to tell everyone?" Mrs. Chen's eyes flashed. "I'm going to tell them the truth. That we discovered an incredible young talent. That sometimes the most extraordinary gifts come from the most unexpected places." She paused. "And Jessica, I suggest you think very carefully about how you've been speaking to people in this house." Jessica's face turned red. Kevin, to his credit, spoke up. "I'm sorry. We were really rude earlier." "That was wrong." Lily nodded, accepting the apology with grace. The next hour was chaos. The personal shopper arrived with 3 different dresses. They chose a deep blue one that made Lily look sophisticated beyond her 16 years. Someone did her hair. Patricia updated all the programs and place cards. Mrs. Chen made a phone call that Lily overheard part of. Something about rare talent and full scholarship, and "You need to hear her tonight." Isabel helped her daughter get ready, fixing the dress, making sure everything was perfect. In the bathroom, away from everyone else, she hugged Lily tight. "Are you scared?" Isabel asked. "Terrified," Lily admitted. "Mom, what if I mess up in front of all those people?" "You won't. But even if you did, you've already proven everything you needed to prove. I'm so proud of you. I wish Dad could see this." Isabel's eyes welled up. "Me too, baby." "Me too, but he knew. He always knew you were special." Guests started arriving right on schedule. The ballroom filled with people in expensive gowns and tailored suits. Jewelry sparkled under the chandeliers. Conversations buzzed with that particular energy of people who were used to luxury. Lily watched from behind a curtain at the side of the room. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. Patricia stepped up to the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this special charity gala. We have an exciting change to tonight's program. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we have a different performer for you this evening. I'm thrilled to introduce a remarkable young talent, discovered right here in our own community. Please welcome Lily Santos." The applause was polite but uncertain. People were clearly wondering who this unknown girl was and why they should care. Lily walked out onto the stage. Under the bright lights and the beautiful dress, she looked like she belonged there, But inside, she was still that girl from the kitchen corner. She sat at the piano and adjusted the bench. The room grew quiet. She placed her fingers on the keys and closed her eyes for just a moment. Then she began to play. This time she started with something softer. Debussy's Clair de Lune, Moonlight. The notes floated through the air like a dream, gentle and mysterious. It was the kind of piece that made you forget where you were, that transported you somewhere else entirely. People stopped checking their phones. Conversations died out completely. Even the waiter stopped moving. By the time Lily transitioned into her second piece, a passionate Rachmaninoff prelude, she had them completely captivated. And in the back of the room, Isabel stood next to Mrs. Chen watching her daughter shine. For the first time in 3 years, she felt like maybe they were going to be okay. Maybe the sacrifice had been worth it. Maybe their story wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. Lily played for 90 minutes straight. Her fingers moved across the keys like they'd been born to be there, transitioning seamlessly from one piece to another. She played Beethoven with power that shook the chandeliers. She played Mozart with a lightness that made people smile without knowing why. She played contemporary pieces that most of the audience had never heard before, compositions that felt both modern and timeless. Halfway through her performance, she noticed something. People were crying. Not just one or two. She could see at least a dozen guests quietly wiping their eyes, moved by something they couldn't quite explain. Music had a way of reaching past all the walls people built, touching something true inside them. An older gentleman in the front row sat completely still, his eyes closed, just listening. Later, Lily would learn he was Vincent Park, the director of the prestigious Riverside Conservatory. The same conservatory that had turned down her application 2 months ago because she couldn't afford the audition fee. When Lily played her final note, the room stayed silent for 3 full seconds. Then everyone rose to their feet at once. The applause was deafening. It wasn't the polite clapping from earlier. This was real. People were cheering, shouting "Bravo!" like they were at a concert hall. Lily stood up from the piano bench and bowed, her legs shaking. She'd never experienced anything like this. In all her years of practice, playing alone in her room or for her mother, she'd never imagined what it would feel like to share her music with so many people at once. As she walked off the stage, Mrs. Chen met her with an expression Lily had never seen on her face before. Respect. That was extraordinary, Mrs. Chen said. Truly extraordinary. Before Lily could respond, people started approaching her. The older gentleman from the front row reached her first. "Miss Santos," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Vincent Park. I direct the Riverside Conservatory. I need to speak with you." Lily shook his hand, confused. "I applied there, sir. A few months ago." His eyebrows raised. "You did? What happened?" "I couldn't pay the audition fee," Lily said simply. "It was $300. Vincent Park's face fell. He looked genuinely upset. "We have a fee waiver program. Did anyone tell you about it?" "No, sir. The website just said there was a fee, so I assumed I couldn't afford it." He shook his head slowly. "That's unacceptable. Our system failed you, and I apologize. But I'm going to fix this right now. You're accepted. Full scholarship. 4 years, everything included. Tuition, books, even housing if you need it." Lily felt dizzy. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me correctly. That performance was one of the finest I've witnessed from someone your age in 30 years of teaching. You have a gift that deserves to be nurtured properly." He pulled out a business card. "Call my office Monday morning. We'll handle all the paperwork." A woman in an elegant red dress approached next. "Excuse me, I'm Catherine Wong from the City Times. I cover arts and culture. Would you be willing to do an interview? I'd love to write about your story." Then came a man who owned a music venue downtown. He wanted to book her for a series of Sunday afternoon concerts. Then a woman who ran a youth music program and wanted to know if Lily would consider teaching master classes to younger students. Within 20 minutes, Lily was surrounded by at least 30 people, all wanting to talk to her, to help her, to be part of whatever came next for this incredible young pianist they'd just discovered. Isabel watched from across the room, tears streaming down her face. Patricia stood next to her, smiling. "Your daughter is going to be famous," Patricia said. "I just wanted her to have opportunities," Isabel replied quietly. "I never imagined anything like this." Mrs. Chen approached them both. "Isabel, can we talk?"
Privately?
They stepped into the hallway outside the ballroom. Isabel's heart sank. This was it. Mrs. Chen was going to fire her. She'd made a scene, put her daughter forward, disrupted the entire evening. Of course there would be consequences. I owe you an apology, Mrs. Chen said. Isabel blinked. Ma'am, you've worked in my home for 2 years. I never once asked about your life before you came here. I never asked about your education, your skills, your dreams. I saw you only as someone who cleaned my kitchen. She paused. That was wrong. You're clearly an accomplished woman who fell on hard times, and instead of seeing that, I just saw a maid. You gave me a job when I needed one, Isabel said carefully. I'm grateful for that. That's generous of you, but it doesn't excuse my blindness. Mrs. Chen took a breath. I'd like to offer you a different position. My children need discipline. They need perspective. They need to learn that worth isn't measured by bank accounts. I want you to be their private tutor. Not for academics, they have tutors for that. But for music, for culture, for understanding that real value comes from dedication and hard work. Isabel stared at her. I don't understand. I'll triple your current salary. You'll have weekends off, full benefits, and you can use the music room in the East Wing anytime you want. It has a Steinway grand piano that mostly sits empty. Maybe it's time someone actually played it. Mrs. Chen, I can't possibly... Yes, you can. And frankly, after what I witnessed tonight, you'd be doing me a favor. My kids have had every advantage in life, and they've learned to look down on people who have less. That ends now. They need to learn from someone like you. Isabel's mind was racing. Triple her salary meant she could move out of their cramped apartment. Benefits meant she could finally see a doctor about the pain in her back. Access to a real piano meant Lily could practice properly while she studied at the conservatory. I accept, she said quietly. Thank you. Back in the ballroom, Kevin and Jessica approached Lily during a rare moment when she wasn't surrounded by people. Hey, Kevin said awkwardly. Can we talk for a second? Lily nodded, stepping aside with them. We were really horrible to you, Jessica said, and for once she sounded genuine. Not just today. Every time you came here, we treated you like you were invisible, or worse, like you were beneath us. We didn't see you, Kevin added, and that was completely messed up. I get it, Lily said. You thought you knew who I was based on where my mom works and what I wear. People do that. It's still not okay, Jessica insisted. And watching you up there tonight, seeing how wrong we were, it really made me think about how I treat people in general. We'd like to start over, Kevin said. If you're willing. Maybe actually get to know you as a person? Lily studied them both. She could hold a grudge. She'd earned that right. But her father had always told her that grace was more powerful than anger. That forgiveness took more strength than bitterness. Okay, she said simply. Fresh start. The relief on their faces was obvious. They weren't bad kids, Lily realized. They'd just never been challenged before. They'd never had to think about what life looked like from someone else's perspective. The gala continued for another hour. People kept coming up to Lily, but she noticed something interesting. They weren't just talking to her anymore. They were talking to her mother, too. Asking Isabel about her teaching background, about the conservatory in Manila, about how she'd trained such an incredible pianist. For the first time in 3 years, people saw Isabel Santos as more than just a maid. As the evening wound down and the last guest departed, Lily sat back down at the piano, alone in the now quiet ballroom. She played softly, just for herself this time, a simple melody her father used to hum while cooking dinner. Isabel found her there, still in the blue dress, still looking like she belonged on a stage. Ready to go home? Isabel asked. Lily finished the melody and closed the piano lid gently. Yeah, but Mom. What, sweetheart? Can I play it for Dad? Lily's voice cracked slightly. I mean, I know he's not here. But do you think somehow he knows? Do you think he heard me tonight? Isabel sat down on the bench next to her daughter and pulled her close. Baby, your father knew from the moment you first touched a piano that you were meant for this. He always believed. And yes, I think somehow he heard every note. They sat there together in the empty ballroom, mother and daughter, holding on to each other, and everything they'd survived to get to this moment. Tomorrow would bring phone calls and interviews and decisions about the future. But tonight they'd proven something important. That talent has nothing to do with money. That worth has nothing to do with job titles. That sometimes the most extraordinary people are the ones nobody bothers to see. And that when you finally get the chance to be heard, You should play like your life depends on it, because sometimes it does. 3 months had passed since that night at the gala, and Lily still couldn't believe how much her life had changed. She woke up every morning in a small but comfortable apartment that she and her mother could actually afford. No more paper-thin walls, no more hearing every argument from the neighbors, no more lying awake worried about whether they'd make rent that month. Her mornings now started with practice on the Steinway in the Chen family's music room. Mrs. Chen had been serious about that offer. Lily had a key to the East Wing and could come any time. She usually arrived at 6 in the morning when the house was still quiet, and played for 2 hours before school. The piano had become like an old friend. Her fingers knew exactly how much pressure each key needed, understood the subtle way the instrument responded to emotion. That cheap keyboard at home sat in the corner now, retired but not forgotten. It had carried her through the hard years and she'd never throw it away. "You're getting better every day," Isabel said one morning, listening from the doorway. She was dressed differently now. No more maid's uniform. She wore comfortable clothes like a teacher would, her hair down instead of pulled back in that tight bun. "I'm working on the list piece for next month," Lily said, flexing her fingers. "It's brutal. My hands cramp after 20 minutes. That's because you're tensing up. Remember what your father used to say? The music flows through you, not from you. You can't force it." Lily smiled at the memory. Her father had never played piano himself, but he'd understood music in his own way. He'd been a chef, and he always said cooking and music were the same. Both required passion, precision, and knowing when to trust your instincts. School had gotten complicated. The article in the City Times had run 2 weeks after the gala, and suddenly everyone at Lincoln High knew who she was. Some kids were genuinely excited for her. They asked questions about the conservatory, wanted to hear her play, treated her like she'd always been part of their world. But others had gotten weird about it. There were whispers in the hallway, comments about how she thought she was too good for public school now. A few girls who'd never spoken to her before suddenly acted like they'd been friends forever, wanting to be seen with the famous pianist. Her real friends, the ones who'd known her before, stayed steady though. Maya, who sat next to her in calculus, had summed it up perfectly. "You're still the same person who helped me study for midterms and shares her lunch when I forget mine. The piano thing is cool, but it doesn't change who you are." Lily tried to remember that on the hard days. The conservatory classes started in the afternoon, 3 days a week. Vincent Park had arranged her schedule so she could finish her regular high school classes in the morning and spend her afternoons immersed in serious musical training. The other students at Riverside Conservatory were intimidating at first. They'd all grown up wealthy, with private instructors and summer programs in Europe. They talked about performances at Carnegie Hall and master classes with famous pianists like it was normal. But Lily had something they didn't. She had hunger. She practiced harder, stayed later, pushed herself further. While other students treated their talent like something they'd always had, Lily treated hers like something precious she'd almost lost. "You play like you're fighting for your life," her instructor, Professor Martinez, told her one afternoon. "It's raw, intense. Some of the other students play perfectly, technically flawless. But you make people feel something. Is that good or bad?" Lily asked. "It's rare," he said simply. "Technical perfection can be taught. But that emotional connection? You either have it or you don't. And you have it in abundance." The weekend concerts at the downtown venue had become a regular thing. Every Sunday at 2 o'clock, Lily played for whoever showed up. Sometimes it was 50 people, sometimes 200. The venue owner, Mr. Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, paid her $200 per performance. It wasn't a fortune, but it was her money. Money she earned doing something she loved. She'd opened a savings account and was putting away half of every payment. Her mother had taught her that financial security was freedom, and after years of living paycheck to paycheck, Lily understood that lesson deeply. One Sunday, after her performance, an elderly woman approached her. She must have been in her 80s, moving slowly with a cane. "You remind me of someone," the woman said, her eyes bright despite her age. "Oh?" Lily said politely. "Myself. 60 years ago. I played piano too, quite seriously. I had a scholarship to study in Vienna." "That's amazing. Did you go?" The woman's smile faded slightly. "No, I got married instead. Had children. My husband thought music was a nice hobby but not a real career. I gave it up." She reached out and touched Lily's hand gently. Don't let anyone convince you to make yourself smaller. Don't let anyone tell you your gift doesn't matter. Promise me. I promise, Lily said, feeling the weight of those words. The woman nodded, satisfied, and walked away. Lily never saw her again, but she thought about that conversation a lot. Back at the Chen house, things had shifted in ways both big and small. Kevin and Jessica kept their word about starting fresh. It wasn't perfect. They still said privileged things sometimes, still didn't fully understand what life looked like outside their bubble, but they were trying. Jessica had started taking piano lessons from Isabel. She wasn't particularly talented, but she was dedicated. I always thought I wasn't musical, she admitted one day, but I think I just never tried. Everything else came easy, so when this was hard, I quit. Kevin had gotten involved in a mentorship program at a community center, teaching basketball to kids who couldn't afford expensive sports leagues. It's weird, he told Lily. I thought I'd be doing them a favor, but they've taught me more than I've taught them. Mrs. Chen had transformed too. She'd started a scholarship fund called Hidden Talents that specifically helped students from low-income families access arts education. The application didn't require a fee. It didn't ask about parents' jobs or where students lived. It just asked one question. What do you dream of creating? The fund had already helped 12 students in 3 months. A dancer whose family couldn't afford lessons. A painter who'd been using crayons because she couldn't buy real art supplies. A violinist who practiced on an instrument held together with tape. Isabel sometimes helped review the applications, and she'd come home with tears in her eyes. There are so many talented kids out there who just need a chance, she'd tell Lily. So many stories like yours. One evening, Lily was practicing in the music room when both twins came in and sat down to listen. When she finished the piece, neither of them said anything for a moment. Can I ask you something? Jessica finally said. How did you keep going? When things were hard, when nobody saw your talent, how did you not just give up? Lily thought about it. I never felt like I had a choice. Music wasn't something I did. It was part of who I was. Giving it up would have been like giving up breathing. But it must have hurt, Kevin said. Sitting in that kitchen while we made fun of you. Knowing what you could do but having nobody care. It did hurt, Lily admitted. But my mom taught me something important. She said that other people's failure to see your value doesn't decrease your value. It just means they're not looking properly. Jessica leaned back against the wall. I want to be the kind of person who looks properly, who doesn't just assume things about people based on stupid stuff like where they live or what their parents do. Then be that person, Lily said simply. It's a choice you make every day. A few weeks later, Lily got a call from Catherine Wong, the journalist who'd written the first article about her. She wanted to do a follow-up story 6 months later to see how things were going. They met at a coffee shop near the conservatory. Catherine had her notebook out, but she wasn't writing yet. She was just listening as Lily talked about her life now, about the opportunities that had opened up, about how strange it felt to go from invisible to visible so quickly. Do you ever feel guilty? Catherine asked. That you got this chance when so many others don't? Every single day, Lily answered honestly. That's why I'm starting something new. A free music program for kids whose parents work service jobs. Hospitality, cleaning, food service. Kids like me whose parents are too busy surviving to afford lessons. When does it start? Next month. We're using a space at the community center. I'm teaching piano and we have volunteers for violin, guitar, and voice. Nothing fancy. Just a chance for kids to discover if they have a gift. Catherine smiled and finally started writing. That's a great angle for the article. It's not an angle, Lily said. It's just the right thing to do. That night, lying in bed, Lily thought about how far she'd come since that day in the kitchen. How her entire world had changed because she'd been brave enough to sit at that piano and show people who she really was. But she also thought about the elderly woman at the concert. The one who'd given up her dreams, about all the talented people who never got a chance to be seen, about how much beauty the world missed out on because it didn't look past the surface. She picked up her phone and texted her mother. Thank you for never letting me quit. The response came back immediately. Thank you for giving me something to believe in during the hard times. Sweet dreams, baby. Lily closed her eyes, already hearing tomorrow's practice piece in her head. There was still so much to learn, so much to prove, so many people to reach. But tonight she let herself just be grateful. for second chances, for being seen, for music that had saved her life in more ways than one. Tomorrow she'd keep fighting. Tonight she'd rest. 6 months after starting the community music program, Lily stood in front of 15 kids who reminded her so much of herself. Their clothes were worn but clean. Their eyes held that particular mix of hope and uncertainty that came from wanting something you weren't sure you deserved. "Who here has ever touched a piano before?" she asked. 3 hands went up hesitantly. Good. "And who here thinks they could never be good at music because they started too late or don't have the right background?" Every single hand went up this time. Lily smiled. "Let me tell you a story about a girl who sat in a kitchen, invisible, while rich kids laughed at her. A girl whose mother cleaned houses so she could eat. A girl who practiced on a keyboard that cost less than those kids spent on lunch." The children leaned forward, listening. "That girl was me, less than a year ago. And you know what I learned? Talent doesn't care how much money your parents make. It doesn't care what neighborhood you're from. It only cares whether you're willing to work for it." A small boy in the back, maybe 8 years old, raised his hand. "But what if we're not good enough?" "Then you practice until you are," Lily said simply. "Being good enough isn't something you're born with. It's something you build one day at a time." She sat at the old upright piano the community center had donated. It was nothing like the Steinway at the Chen house, but it worked, and that was all that mattered. "Let me show you something," she said, and began playing a simple melody. Just 5 notes repeating in a pattern. "This is where everyone starts. These 5 notes. Mozart started here. Beethoven started here. I started here." Then her fingers began to move faster, building on those same 5 notes, transforming them into something complex and beautiful. The children watched, mesmerized, as that simple pattern became a waterfall of sound. When she finished, she turned back to them. "Everything complicated is just simple things stacked together. You don't have to be amazing tomorrow. You just have to be a little better than you were yesterday." Over the next few months, something magical happened in that community center. Kids who'd never thought they could make music started playing. Some of them were naturals. Others struggled. But they all showed up, week after week, because finally someone had told them they were worth the investment. A girl named Rosa, whose mother worked 3 jobs, had hands that seemed made for piano. She picked up concepts so quickly that Lily started giving her extra materials to practice at home. "I don't have a piano, though," Rosa admitted quietly. "Neither did I for a long time," Lily said. "But I'll talk to some people. We'll figure something out." 2 days later, Vincent Park from the conservatory called Lily. "I heard about your student who needs an instrument. We have old practice pianos in storage. Not beautiful, but functional. I can have one delivered to her apartment." "Really? Just like that?" "Just like that," he confirmed. "You're doing important work, Lily. Let me help." The piano arrived that weekend, and Rosa's mother cried when she saw it. "Nobody's ever done something like this for us," she kept saying. Lily understood. She remembered that feeling, the shock of someone actually caring. Meanwhile, her own career was taking off in ways she hadn't expected. A recording company had reached out, interested in producing her first album. Concert halls were booking her months in advance. She'd even been invited to compete in an international piano competition in London. "You should go," Isabel insisted when Lily showed her the invitation. "This is exactly the kind of opportunity that could change everything." "But the community program," Lily protested. "The kids are counting on me. The kids will be here when you get back. And honestly, seeing you succeed, watching you take these opportunities, that teaches them something too. It shows them what's possible," Professor Martinez agreed. "You can't pour from an empty cup, Lily. You have to keep growing, keep pushing yourself. That doesn't mean abandoning the kids. It means showing them what dedication looks like." The competition in London was intense. Pianists from 37 countries, all incredibly talented, all hungry for the recognition that first place would bring. The prize was $50,000 and a guaranteed tour of major concert halls across Europe. Lily had never been on a plane before, had never left the country. Everything about the trip felt surreal. Isabel couldn't come. She had to work, and the plane ticket was too expensive anyway. But she video called Lily every night, reminding her to breathe, to trust her training, to remember why she played. "Not for the judges," Isabel said. "Not for the prize. Play for that little girl who used to sit in the kitchen. Play for your father. Play because the music needs to come out of you." The competition lasted 3 days. Preliminary rounds, semifinals, finals. Each round, pianists were eliminated until only 6 remained. Lily made it to the finals. On the last night, standing backstage in a concert hall that seated 2,000 people, she felt the familiar terror creeping in. Her hands were shaking. Her breath came short. What was she doing here? Competing against people who'd trained at prestigious academies their whole lives. Then her phone buzzed. A text from Isabel. Your father would be so proud. I'm so proud. Now go show them what you're made of. And a message from Rosa, her student. You told us that being good enough is something you build. You built this. Now play? Lily walked onto that stage with her head high. She sat at the grand piano, adjusted the bench, and placed her fingers on the keys. She played Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most demanding pieces in classical repertoire. 25 minutes of technical brilliance and emotional depth, but she didn't play it like she was trying to impress anyone. She played it like she was telling a story. Her story. About struggle and survival. About a mother who sacrificed everything. About a father who believed. About kids in a community center who were just learning that they mattered. The music poured out of her, raw and honest and real. Some of the other competitors had played more perfectly, hitting every note with machine-like precision, but Lily played with something that couldn't be taught. She played with soul. When the final note echoed through the hall, the silence lasted just a moment before the audience erupted. People were on their feet, cheering, some crying. The judges were conferring intensely, their faces serious. 2 hours later, they announced the results. Third place went to a pianist from Germany. Second place to someone from Japan. And first place, the head judge said, his voice carrying through the hall, goes to Lily Santos representing the United States. Lily's knees almost gave out. Isabel, watching the live stream from home, screamed so loud the neighbors came to check if everything was okay. The prize money meant security. Real security. Isabel could stop worrying about unexpected expenses. Lily could expand the community music program. They could even visit her father's grave in Manila, something they hadn't been able to afford since they'd left. But more than the money, it was the validation. The proof that she belonged in these spaces. That her talent was real, not just a fluke or luck. When she returned home, Rosa and the other students had made a banner. Congratulations, Lily. You showed us the way. Standing in that community center, surrounded by kids who were just beginning their journeys, Lily realized something. This was why she'd suffered through those hard years. This was why every sacrifice, every moment of doubt, every time she'd felt invisible had been worth it. Not so she could be famous. Not so she could win competitions, but so she could turn around and light the path for others walking through the same darkness she'd known. Okay, she said, sitting at the piano. Today we're learning something new. It's challenging, but I believe in every single one of you. Will we mess up? Asked a small voice. Probably, Lily said honestly. I still mess up all the time. But you know what? Every mistake teaches you something. Every wrong note gets you closer to the right one. That's not failure. That's practice. She began playing the demonstration, and 15 pairs of eyes watched intently, believing that maybe, just maybe, they could do this too. Outside the window, the afternoon sun painted everything gold. In the back of the room, Isabel stood watching her daughter teach, thinking about how far they'd come, how much they'd survived, how their story of struggle had transformed into something beautiful. A maid and her daughter, proving that worth has nothing to do with where you start, only where you're determined to go. And the music played on, teaching the same lesson it always had, that every person has a song inside them, waiting to be heard. Sometimes you just need someone to believe in you long enough for you to believe in yourself. Sometimes all it takes is one chance, one moment where someone sees you, really sees you, and says, yes, you belong here too. For Lily and Isabel, that moment had changed everything, and now they were paying it forward. One student, one song, one dream at a time.